Grand Rising, brothers and sisters. All praises to the Most High Yahweh for giving me the inspiration to make this video and for everything that He does for us. I give recognition to the Holy Spirit for giving us the spirit of understanding, and I give recognition to Yahweh Shai for laying down the blueprint on how to live. Also, I want to give a salute to all the brothers and sisters who actively keep and teach the laws of the Most High, who actively seeks out and teaches the truth. In this documentary, I will be compiling everything that I've learned from other YouTubers and their sources, along with my own findings. So I will be citing other people's works and will be giving credit where credit is due. But before we get into this documentary, I'd like to give salutes to brothers and sisters whose work has inspired me to make this documentary. I'd like to salute Big Judah, salutes to Karimio, salutes to UBTV, salutes to Lil Moray, salutes to Dan Calloway, salutes to Tasha C, salutes to Opie Neha, salutes to A New Breed, and salutes to other brothers and sisters who put in work who I did not mention. Now, without further delay, let's get into why I'm a firm believer that Israel, along with other ancient kingdoms, are over here in the Americas and not on the other side of the Atlantic. To my audience, I want to pose a question that most people who are new to these truths ask. Why do you believe that Israel is located in the Americas, and what proofs do you have? My response is, I firmly believe that Israel, along with other ancient kingdoms, are located in the Americas based on an overwhelming abundance of evidence and proof that the land of Canaan, along with other ancient civilizations, have always been located in these lands and not on the other side of the Atlantic. I hope that by the end of this documentary and/or series that you will become a firm believer too. Now, viewers, throughout this documentary, I will ask you various questions to help you think. Questions such as, why do you think that ancient Israel is located in present-day Middle East? And what proofs do you have other than the narrative that you've been spoon-fed since elementary school? Most of my viewers already have the clear understanding that we, the so-called American Negroes, are in fact the descendants of the ancient Israelites. With that understanding, why would you continue to fully or partially believe in the same system that teaches you the opposite? Why do you insist that these very same entities who lie to you about who you are willing to reveal to you Israel's true location? Why do you choose to disbelieve your brothers and sisters who spend years researching these subjects while at the same time continuing to believe in the very same system of our oppressors? The same ones who enslaved our people and used our own books to justify our enslavement. Now, I'm not telling you that all non-Israelites are not to be trusted, but what I am stating is not to trust the status quo and not to believe what popular ideas and theories are being pushed as truths by the very same system which aforetime was prophesied to take crafty counsel against you. Psalms 83. The reason I know Israel is not over in the so-called Middle East / North Africa is because there are historical truths and evidence that clearly portrays that there has been a global cover-up of our history. The Most High sent prophets aforetime telling us that there will be a global conspiracy to destroy and hide His people's true identity. But what we also tend to forget is that a major part of erasing a people's history is by taking away their land and covering up their footprint. An example of this is today's aggressive tactics of gentrification being used on communities in which we historically resided. With gentrification comes reallocation of lands, which cause history to be forgotten and culture to become lost. Now, let's turn to Psalms 83 of the first chapter to expound on this global conspiracy to hide the true identity of the Israelites' descendants. Verse 1 through 5 reads, For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent, they are confederate against thee. As we read in the first 5 verses of Psalms 83, we see that the world has formed a union to destroy the Israelites and to hide our true identity. When they said, "Let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance." Remember that David aforetime prophesied that this will happen to our people. Israel fell into sin, and this prophecy came into fruition. But wait, if we were to be cut off from being a nation, and our name be no more in remembrance, then what could this passage be implying? Because the biblical history of Israel has been taught for thousands of years in institutions of learning, even to this very day. This passage is telling us that Gentile nations will attempt to destroy the identity of Israel's descendants by all means necessary, which included switching around true Israelites with imposters while hiding Israel's true identity. So now I ask, why is it so hard to believe that our enemies would not be capable of lying, switching locations, and burying the evidence of our existence? Is covering up a conquered civilization not a common practice that the Europeans and other conquering nations practice? Are European conquerors of the Americas who rule to this very day not capable of such a practice? Of course they are. Later in this documentary, I will show you real-life instances where this occurred. Everyone is familiar with the narrative of Christopher Columbus discovering the Americas, heavy quotations. But little do people know that in 1492, before Columbus sailed the ocean blue, he hired Hebrew-speaking Marranos/Moorish sailors who were not only intended on being navigators, but also his interpreters. According to this article on History.com, Christopher Columbus' intentions were to sail west to find alternate trading routes to Asia. But wait, if this narrative is true, why did Christopher Columbus, whose true name is Salvador Fernandez Zarco, need Hebrew interpreters if his intentions were to set sail and land on the western shores of Asia? During the 15th century, Europe was very familiar with the lands that lied east of Constantinople. Thanks to 12th century explorer Marco Polo, Europeans at the time were very familiar with the lands such as present-day Central Asia, India, and the land surrounding present-day China. So again I ask, what was the point of having a crew who spoke Hebrew and yet none of the languages of the Oriental lands? Was it because he had secret intentions of going to lands where people spoke Hebrew? As I mentioned before, Christopher Columbus' true name was Salvador Fernandez Zarco. But is this the only truth that modern-day academia continues to hide from us about this mysterious man and his lesser-known intentions? Of course not. There are many sources pointing out that Mr. Zarco was in fact a Marrano, aka a Moor.
How many people really realize what happened within the Jewish community in Spain in 1492?
Well, this is a mystery that God has kept for a long time. Because we've said that Christopher Columbus is from Italy. No, he's from Portugal. No, he's from Spain. Well, where is he really from? Well, they say that he was from Genoa, Italy, but his Italian writing is horrible. But his Castilian is perfect, So, so be it as it may, recently there is a growth, an exponential growth of discoveries that point to the fact that Christopher Columbus, first of all, his name is not Columbus. His name, and not because I'm Hispanic with Sanchez surname and Martinez and so forth, but his name is Colón. And so in Spanish we have it right, Cristóbal Colón. So his real name is Salvador Zarco. All right, but now recently we've discovered that Christopher Columbus, Cristóbal Colón, was known as a quote-unquote Marrano.
We've discovered that Christopher Columbus, Cristóbal Colón, was known as a quote-unquote Marrano.
Marrano? The Marranos are those that were forced to convert to Roman Catholicism, that were Sephardim, and then they were forced to eat pork, which is very unkosher, and then they were called Marrano, pigs. Swine, because you see the facade of the Spanish Inquisition. What is Inquisition? It comes from the root word to inquire. But this was more than inquiring. This was spying and forcing Jews to convert to Roman Catholicism. So what's happening during this time is that it's not so much the facade of religion to force people to convert, it was greed. It's because the crown, the King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella are going broke. They're exploring all over the place, wars all over the place. They need money, all right? So who's got the money? Who are the financiers? Who are the ones that are so wealthy in Spain and later Portugal? Well, the Sephardim, the Jews, okay. So as early as 1391, there was a major diaspora, meaning scattering, because of the oppression, tortures, burnings at the stake of the Jews before and after conversion.
The story of the slaves in America begins with Christopher Columbus. His voyage to America was not financed by Queen Isabella, but by Louis de Santiago, who advanced the sum of 17,000 ducats, about 5,000 pounds today, equal to 50,000 pounds, to finance the voyage, which began on August 3rd, 1492. Columbus was accompanied by 5 Marranos, Jews who had forsworn their religion and supposedly became Catholics. Louis de Torre, interpreter, Marco, the surgeon, Bemal, the physician, Alonso de la Calle, and Gabriel Sanchez.
Now, since we have established that Christopher Columbus, aka Salvador Fernandez Zarco, was in fact a Marrano, let us look into the history of the Moors, Moriscos, Marranos, and Moros. But before we do, I would like to know how many people before today knew that Salvador Fernandez Zarco was the actual name of Christopher Columbus? I'm sure that not many of our teachers have taught us this. You heard me mention before the term Moor in association with the word Marrano. When looking up the word, most authors try to hide the fact that during the era of Christopher Columbus, the word Marrano was interchangeably used with words such as Moor, Moro, and Morisco to describe European populations of crypto-Jews and Muslims, crypto meaning secret. If one were to do more digging on this group associated with the word Marrano, you will find out that these crypto-Jews were in actuality crypto-Muslims. This occurred because during this era, kingdoms that were under the influence of the Roman Catholic Church had more tolerance towards the Jewish faith rather than the faith of the invaded Muslims. What does Marrano mean? According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, Marrano, in Spanish history, a Jew who converted to Christian faith to escape persecution, but who continued to practice Judaism in secret. It was a term of abuse and also applies to any descendants of Marranos. The origin of the word Marrano is uncertain. Just like in the snippet I showed you earlier in this documentary, the word Marrano is associated with a person practicing Judaism in secret, aka a crypto-Jew. However, the term Marrano was also used as a derogatory word meaning swine to disparage people who followed a certain dietary lifestyle, such as the Jews and Muslims. When reading page 33 from the book The Trace of God, Derrida, and Religion, you can see that the word Marrano was not only used for Jews, but also for Muslims. Now let's investigate the definition of the word Moor. The definition of the word Moor from the Encyclopedia Britannica reads, Moor, in English usage, a Moroccan, or formerly a member of the Muslim population of Al-Andalus, now Spain and Portugal. But I will show you that the name Moor was often interchanged with words Morisco, Moro, and Marrano. These words were not solely applied to individuals of Jewish and Muslim religion, but more importantly, they were applied to people of dark skin complexions who practiced these religions. Here's the definition of Morisco from the Encyclopedia Britannica. Morisco, little more, one of the Spanish Muslims or their descendants who became baptized Christians. The word Morisco, like the term Moor, was used in association with the Muslim faith. But is it only the Muslims who were known for being Moriscos? When we investigate the usage of the word Morisco, Wikipedia states, one was for Spanish immigrants to Spanish America who had been Moriscos passing for Christians. since Moriscos as well as New Christian converted Jews were banned in the late 16th century from immigrating there. One such case in colonial Colombia, where a man was accused for being a Morisco, the court examined his penis to determine if he were circumcised in Islamic and Jewish manner. As we just read in this Wikipedia article, the author cited a book called The Disappearing Mestizo, Configuring Difference in the Colonial New Kingdom of Granada. This book referred to a man who was accused of being a Morisco of either Jewish or Muslim faith, further solidifying the fact that Jews were also considered to be Moriscos. As we continue reading from this Wikipedia article, it states that the more common usage of Morisco in Spanish America was for light-skinned offspring of a Spaniard and a mulatta. But even this assertion for Wikipedia isn't entirely true. When we investigate this 18th century painting of the Spanish caste system, we clearly see the words Morisco, Moro, and Mora, which we learned earlier all simply mean Moor. These words were strictly being used for people of a dark skin tone and not for the light-skinned offspring as mentioned in the Wikipedia article. We learned in this segment that the Moors, also known as the Marranos, Moriscos, Moros, Moras, and even the Morenos were Negroid people who practiced the Muslim or Jewish faith. Christopher Columbus' identity crisis is very similar to the identity crisis of the biblical figure, Jesus, or as I like to call the true savior, Yahushua. Though modern-day academia will admit that today's depiction of Christopher Columbus is not accurate, they will refuse to conduct an extensive investigation of what he may have looked like, and it's no wonder. Is it because we've been taught our whole lives that Christopher Columbus looked like this? When in actuality, he looked like this? In the previous segment, we discovered the actual identity of Christopher Columbus was that of a quote-unquote black man and not the fabricated version we're all familiar with. Even though I recently discovered this fact, institutions of higher learning have always known. Instead of teaching the general public this finding about Christopher Columbus, today's education system continues to hide this pivotal information about the 13th century Moor. Whenever I say institutions of higher learning, or the word they, I'm referring to those who dictate what is generally accepted by the masses as being truth. These influential authorities continue to hide many hidden truths behind misinformation, paywalls, greed, and the average person's preconceived notions. The people who indoctrinate this society do so for obvious reasons. If these truths were to spread like wildfire, our society would be forced to reveal more hidden information, which will force a complete rewriting of history. The reason I spent the first segment highlighting the 13th century Moorish explorer was to show that the rulers of this society have been extremely effective at hiding true history, such as was done with Jesus. Now let us take the understanding that we learned from the last segment about the deception, which was Christopher Columbus, and apply it to history which we were taught about early European contact with the Americas. As I mentioned in the last segment, Christopher Columbus and his sailors had intentions of sailing west to hopefully land in the Orient to conduct trade. If this were true, why was it that his interpreter was fluent in none of the languages needed to do trade with the people of this region? Now, the story goes that Christopher Columbus was trying to find his way to the lands of present-day India. However, he had to make navigational changes to routes previously used by explorers such as Marco Polo due to the Turkish Empire blocking trade routes to Asia. However, this is another lie taught to the masses to further indoctrinate us. Later in this segment, I will show you that Christopher Columbus had no intentions of going to India. Since I have brought up the country of India, during the 13th century, the name India was not used in association with the landmass or its people. At this time, the name of present-day India was Hindustan, and the people were called Hindustani. Today, India still refers to the name with their popular newspaper called Hindustan Times. Remember this fact, because later I will be integrating this key information. Continuing with the story, it said that Christopher Columbus' first voyage took place on October 12, 1492. This was the same year as the Moors were expelled from Europe. It is documented in the 1970s book titled Sails of Hope, The Secret Mission of Christopher Columbus, that shortly after landing in the Bahamas, Louis de Torres, the interpreter of Christopher Columbus, spoke Yiddish, a form of Hebrew, to the American Aboriginals of the land. Am I the only one who find it funny that Louis de Torres spoke Hebrew to the American Aboriginals and not any of the other languages? Some may say that Louis de Torres speaking Hebrew to the people was by chance, but I strongly disagree, because there is evidence to suggest that Christopher Columbus' intentions were to sail to the Americas the whole time. History teaches that in 1492, the Muslims had blocked trade routes to Asia. Remember that during this era, nations under the Roman Catholic Church were at war with Islamic nations. If this is factual history, with him being a crypto-Muslim, why would it affect Christopher Columbus's travels? After all, he was a Marrano, who in 1492 was being completely funded by the Marranos and not the Catholics. In the upcoming clip from Karimio's video titled Part 3, Nations of the World, I mentioned before that the Jews of the Iberian Peninsula had close ties to the Muslim world. You can dive much deeper into who the Sephardic Jews are by watching this video in its entirety.
Of Sephardic Jewry in the medieval Arab world, Mark R. Cohen says world Jewry can be divided into two parts: the Jews of Islam and the Jews of Christendom, or as I have referred to them as Jews living under the crescent and Jews living under the cross. All right. The Jews under the crescent comprise those who form their traditions in the Islamic world, encompass populations stretching from Persia, all right, from Persia, Islamic world, from Persia, right? Where's Persia? We just came from that area, ancient area. We're talking about Sardis, Sparta, all that, right? In the east to North Africa and Muslim Spain in the west, all the way. That's all right there. You heard that? All the way to Spain. The difficulty stems from the fact that the Sephardim are historically part of the Jews of Christendom, since they descend from those expelled from Catholic Spain in 1492, while the term Sephardim has also been employed in recent times to designate those Jews in Israel who emigrated from Muslim Arab lands. All right? Originally Sepharad, we already know Sepharad, where that is originally. So it says here, in other words, Sepharad was a place in ancient Jewish diaspora. It was thought to be Sardis in Asia Minor, right? We just read that. It was thought to be Sardis in Asia Minor. Well, what happened? All right, now a little further down, I want to get into why I came to this book. It says Sephardic civilization began long before the Reconquista, in a time when the peninsula was ruled by Muslims and when Arabic culture surrounded and influenced the Jews. What? Arabic culture influenced the Jews. Sephardic society in the medieval Arab world was characterized by several features: its sense of noble descent, its tradition of service to Gentile rulers, Why were they doing that? Its high cultural achievement in philosophy and poetry, and its history of crypto-Judaism, secret Judaism, the secret continued practice of Judaism after apparent conversions under duress. You don't understand what they're saying is a lot of these Sephardic Jews and even Muslim Moors, they had to secretly, practice their religion, but they had to openly admit to be Christians. So they were labeled Christians, but they weren't. They were crypto Jews or Moriscos crypto Muslims. Conventional wisdom has traditionally held that medieval Jews living in the Arab world enjoyed substantially greater security and higher level of political and cultural integration than Jews living under the cross did. All right. So, even if modern times you got Muslims fighting Jews, and, that's what we see in the news all the time. During this time, Sephardic Jews were living good under Muslim rule, under Arab rule. All right, I'm in this book. Real quick to correlate, it says Farewell España, the world of the Sephardim, Remembered, by Howard M. Sakar, Sephardim. Again, farewell, España, the world of Sephardim, remembered, right? Sephardi. And it says here that it was a city, a realm that proved uniquely congenial to its Jews, dispersed in small enclaves throughout the southern and central regions of the peninsula. These Jews of Sepharad, of Sardis, right over there in Turkey, the Hebrew term for Iberia, openly welcomed their new conquerors. What? They openly what? They openly welcomed their conquerors, the Moors. They helped them. Yet earlier, under the Christian Visigoths, the Sephardim, remember who the Visigoths, the Goths, the Sumerians, the Goths, they're the same people of the Japhetic tribes. The Sephardim had endured harsh conversionary pressures and intermittent physical abuse. Now they were quite prepared to offer their services to the invading Moors. Who's offering their services? Sephardic Jews, even to organize their own Jewish militias for battle against the common enemy. In consequence, the royal administration have learned to trust the Jews, even as consigned them to their own residential quarters in Cordoba, Seville, and other captured cities. It ensures that they were decently accommodated as a rule within sight under the protection of the royal palace, right? These Jews were being protected by the Moors, all right, and suffered no limitations on their freedom of movement or economic activity. The arrangement was productive enough to attract Jews from other lands. During the 8th and 9th centuries, several thousand Moroccan and Egyptian Jews joined the far larger numbers of Muslim Berbers who migrated to Andalusia. This book says Handbook to Life in the Medieval World, Volume 3, by Madeleine Pellner Cosman, Linda Gale Jones. It says here in this part, Sepharad, the Jews of Al-Andalus. It says the Jews who aided the Muslim armies in establishing Islamic rule in the Iberian Peninsula, they aided, again, they helped them, right? Because they had the routes, they had the trade routes, they knew how to help them get in. They controlled the money, they controlled the economy. The Jews who aided the Muslims' armies in establishing Islamic rule in the Iberian Peninsula were rewarded with one of the most lenient and generous manifestations of Dhimmi status. So, I want to read this book now. It says, The Non-Jewish Origins of the Sephardic Jews. Hey, I didn't say it. Paul Wexler. On page 25 of this book, it says here, the Sephardic Jewish population had the same constellation of geographical origins as the Arabs and Berbers. Same. Historical, ethnographic, and onomastic evidence shows that. Alright? Historical, ethnographic, and onomastic evidence shows that. Same people. In addition to a North African component in the Iberian Jewish community, Jews from Syria, Jews from Syria, Iraq, and the Arabian Peninsula also accompanied the Arabs to North Africa, right? All those other Jews, Sepharda, Sardis, right? Sephardians, all that area that was the Semite area that also a lot of these Japhetic tribes eventually took over, in Babylonian and Hamitic tribes. It's a lot of mixture over there before they even got over here. So a lot of those Jews also accompanied the Arabs to North Africa and Spain on the westward march of Jews and Bedouins. All right. There seems to have been one significant difference in the Jewish and non-Jewish migrations. Whereas Muslim migrations from North Africa to Spain continued through the 12th and 13th century, with varying intensities, the Jews seem to have participated primarily in only an early wave of migration to Spain between 8th and 10th centuries. It says here, continuing, in the absence of significant linguistic data, I have to rely on historical documentation to establish that there were contacts between Iraqi Jewish scholars and their counterparts in North Africa and Spain between the 8th and 10th centuries. Iraqi Jews settled in Spain and North Africa, while Spanish Jews enrolled in Jewish academies in Iraq. So we do know that at least, there was a lot of people traveling back and forth. There was a lot of trade. We do know there was trade going back and forth between these areas. Who was handling the trade? Continuing in Silmach, Morocco, and Iraq. See Asher 1972 and Toby 1982 on the settlement of Iraqi Jews in Cairo in the 9th century. A particularly intriguing early instance of East-West networking among far-flung Jewish communities is the correspondence between the Turkic Khazar King Joseph. All right, here we go, Khazars, right? What we learned earlier about the Khazars. and the Ashkenazi, and how they have blood, same blood as Sephardic Jews, right? And some genetics. It says the celebrated 10th century Arab Jewish diplomat Hasdaim Saprud, who was born in Jaen, on a possible Khazar migration to Spain, on a possible Khazars. The Khazars made it to Spain, right? The Khazars, Ashkenaz people. See the following discussion: Iraqi and Yemenite Jews. All right, so we know that Sephardic Jews and the also the Moors, crypto Jews or Moriscos, Marranos, whatever you want to call them. They got taken out of Spain and Portugal. They had to they had to either convert, stop their religious practices, or die or leave, right? So a lot of them, a lot of these people, Moors and Sephardic Jews, a lot of them were the same. A lot of them were both, ended up in other parts of Europe. We're going to see that France is one of them, and that's very significant to our later.
So, as we learned from the video, Moorish Jews had strong ties to Muslim lands in the Ottoman Turk Empire. Why? Because as I stated before, these Jews were actually crypto-Muslims. There was no reason for Columbus, whose travels were completely funded by Moorish Jews, to be denied access to travel through Turkish-controlled lands and waters. So again, in this documentary, we dispel yet more lies that we were taught by today's miseducation system.